And welcome to this week's live episode of Bonkers.ie TV, where we're all about smarter money and keeping you updated on everything that's happening in the world of personal finance and consumer affairs. I'm Dara, and this week I'm joined by Eileen Devereux, who's the commercial director at taxback.com, who's in today to talk to us about how to claim a tax refund and get more of your tax back from the taxman. So welcome, Eileen. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tax relief and tax refunds aren't really something that a lot of people are up to speed with, that a lot of people know about. So I suppose there's a lot of people who probably could apply for a tax refund but don't. Are there, what numbers are we talking about?
So we would see that in our own case that about 1 in 3 people that contact us are due a refund.
Okay.
Now the refunds are quite significant, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but we would encourage anybody who, there's sometimes a lack of awareness in Ireland that PAYE workers equally are entitled to refunds. You know, self-assessed individuals have to file, but there is a lot of PAYE workers in Ireland, we would say 1 in 3, that are not availing of tax refunds that they are entitled to.
Okay, and so what are these tax refunds? Why do people pay too much tax, and what are the type of refunds that people can get?
There's a variety of reasons that people would overpay. So in some cases it can be directly linked to payroll. So somebody may have a break in their employment, they may have had a second job, they may for some reason have not had their tax credit certs and have run emergency tax, for example. But equally there is a variety of items outside of payroll, from medical expenses to home carers tax credit, to flat rate expenses that may not be linked to revenue for an individual depending on their occupation, and they're items that we can review at the end of the year and avail of a refund that's owing to the person.
Okay, so when we talk about medical expenses, what do we mean by medical expenses? Is it like going to the doctor or going to the dentist?
Yeah, so medical expenses, any unreimbursed medical expense that a taxpayer incurs for themselves or for a dependent is available to be used as a relief with their tax return. The relief is at 20%, so 20% of the overall cost that was unreimbursed. So just in terms of unreimbursed, some people again may have a private health insurance policy where a portion of that has been refunded by the private health insurer. The unrefunded portion can be used in a tax return. So it's the total value of any unreimbursed or uncovered medical expenses, and 20% of that would be available as a relief. Okay,
so basically if anybody who's watching last year went maybe to the dentist or they went to the doctor,
correct,
they could potentially get a tax relief, they could get a tax refund.
Absolutely. Just on the dental, it's non-routine dental. So it's for caps, veneers, root canals, so the non-routine, not for polish or an annual checkup.
Okay.
So any non-routine dental, but absolutely any medical expense, GP, consultant, physiotherapist, as long as the medical expense was incurred with a chartered profession, that's absolutely available as a relief for the individual.
So I mean, practically everyone has to go to the dentist or at least the doctor at least once a year. So I suppose there'd be lots of people who are watching who could actually go out and claim something.
Absolutely, and Revenue published statistics around this particular item. So medical expenses is still a very underutilised relief. At a revenue level, we would have seen in the last number of years around 450,000 claims with respect to medical expenses. Now, taking into consideration the size of the workforce here in Ireland, we would expect that there's the same number of individuals out there that are not availing of what they're entitled to. Okay,
it's a huge number. And what about the home carer tax credit that you referred to? So what do we mean by that? Because that's another big area for people to claim.
Yeah, it's a massive area, and it's another area that's very, I suppose there's a lack of understanding around it. The home carers tax credit is a credit that's available to any married couple or civil partnership where you have one member of the family staying at home to care for either children or other dependents. The credit has been reviewed in most of the recent budgets. From the 1st of January this year, the credit available is €1,500, and it is a credit that the working spouse would be able to take, and it's ultimately given to families because sometimes, with the cost of childcare, it makes more sense for a family to have a parent staying in the home and one working, and this credit is available to any families that are in that situation. So again, just to summarise, it's €1,500 from this year. It would have been €1,200 in previous years, and in any case where you have one parent staying in the home and one parent working.
Okay, wow, that's I think a lot of people, that'll be news to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then anything else? So maybe things like college fees, can they be can get a tax relief against those?
Yes, tuition fees are another common one that we see. Flat rate expenses, so there's hundreds of flat rate expenses here in Ireland, which is, again, it's a credit that's available to certain occupations. So for example, one that stands out is nurses are entitled to a flat rate expense of €733 a year, where they supply and launder their own uniform. Teachers equally have a flat rate expense available to them. Retail workers, journalists, so there's a host of flat rate expenses that, albeit they've been around for years, there's a lack of awareness in terms of what people are entitled to in those occupations.
And when someone comes to taxback.com, what type of refund do people often get? What figures are we looking at?
So we've recently just reviewed our own statistics from last year, and based on our numbers up to the end of December 2018, the average refund that we're seeing for our clients is €1,076.
Okay.
So it's absolutely well worth looking into.
Okay. And how long does it take to process a tax refund?
You're talking about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
So by the time we engage with a client and do an assessment for them, your 2 to 3 weeks money would be in the individual's account.
And so what service then does taxback.com provide? Because I suppose people could obviously go to Revenue and they can do it online, but people can go to you. So if people go to you, what is the difference in the service? So why would you recommend that they might go to you?
The big difference with ourselves is, and people absolutely, Dara, can go to Revenue. I suppose when people approach Revenue, the understanding will be that they're aware of what they're entitled to, and the value that we add to our clients is that we look at their personal situation, we look if there's a family situation there, and what all of the reliefs that might be applicable to them, and we absolutely make sure that anything that's available to that individual or that family is used to maximise the refund that they're due. So I suppose in essence the big difference is someone who would liaise with Revenue directly typically will be very au fait and aware of what they're entitled to themselves, and the clients that come to us would need some guidance in terms of what they're entitled to.
Okay, because I suppose the key thing is that Revenue isn't going to tell you what you need to claim for. They're not
Absolutely.
going to tell you what you're entitled to. So you could be leaving money on the table potentially.
Of course.
And if someone goes to you and you find out that they're not entitled to anything, what happens then? Is there a fee? Is there a charge?
No. So the model that we run is a no refund, no fee. So people will come to ourselves. We will do a full review of their income tax position, and only if we can secure that individual a refund will they incur a fee. The fee is deducted from the refund, so there's never any, transaction between ourselves and the individual. We deduct the fee from the refund and we send the balance to the individual's nominated bank account.
Okay. And does it happen that somebody could get you to do an audit, and then maybe you find out that they actually owe the taxman money, they owe Revenue money? Does that happen from time to time? Should people be worried?
It can happen. It's highly unusual.
Okay.
So in Ireland, with the PAYE system, it's very unlikely that a PAYE worker will have an underpayment. It absolutely isn't the norm. The percentage of cases that would happen is minuscule. If it did happen, then we would ensure that individual understood why, and there would be a very valid reason for it, and we would work with them, I suppose, how they wanted to proceed from there, and maybe support them with setting up a payment plan. But it really isn't the norm. So I suppose there is a little bit of a fear factor here in Ireland, I think, with taxpayers about engaging with Revenue, and there really shouldn't be. Revenue, are here to ensure that people get back what they're due. But if there is that fear factor, I suppose we can be the middle person between the taxpayer and Revenue.
Okay, very good. And how long then, sorry, you were saying it takes about maybe 2 or 3 weeks to process the refund, but how far back can you go? So can you claim for maybe expenses from 5 or 6 years back, or what's the period?
So unfortunately, Revenue operate a use it or lose it policy. So you've got 4 years to claim what you're entitled to, and if you don't do it within the 4-year period, unfortunately, the opportunity to avail of those refunds is lost. Okay,
so that still means though, if somebody maybe didn't incur many expenses in last year, if they did maybe in 2016 or 2017, they could still get a sizable return.
Correct, yeah, and I suppose just back to the 1 in 3, we would do a 4-year review for everybody automatically. So it wouldn't be unusual that perhaps, for one individual we review 4 years, and there might be 1 or 2 tax years where there's a refund. So it's well worth looking into, and it's only when you start digging into these things that you start remembering what you may have incurred 2 or 3 years ago.
Of course. And do people need to wait until the end of the tax year? So I mean, if people think maybe in June or July of this year that they've paid too much tax, can they apply then, or do you have to wait until the end of the year usually?
Typically, you will need to wait till the end of the year. Now, if an individual is relocating internationally and is not going to be working in Ireland for the remainder of the year, then we can process that return earlier. It's a slightly different process, but it's absolutely possible. But normally speaking, for a taxpayer here in Ireland, they wouldn't be able to file in the middle of a period. Now, we've got PAYE modernisation this year, so that may change a little bit, but as per the ruling in historic periods, you would need to wait till the end of the financial period.
Okay, but certainly you could apply now for 2017 or 2016. Yeah,
absolutely. We're very busy at the moment with reviews for 2018, 17, 16. So people can apply immediately, or some people, are waiting on P60s. You can engage immediately, but P60s will be issued over the course of the next couple of weeks, and that will trigger a lot of people to start looking into this as well.
And do you know why people don't engage with your revenue? Why is so much money left on the table? Because we all think we pay too much tax, and yes, you're giving tax refunds of up to €1,000. Why don't people do more?
I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of different reasons. Like, we don't have a compulsory filing practice here in Ireland like we do in some other international jurisdictions. Time, so people are very time poor these days. So while we say we pay too much taxes, it just goes on the back burner and people forget to do it. And then there's the fear. I think there is a very strong fear factor of engaging. Maybe it's better not to engage in case
something happens.
And not really. It isn't going to be the case. It's highly unlikely, and we would absolutely encourage people to reach out and avail of what they're entitled to.
Okay, so before we go then, what would be the 3 or 4 key messages that you'd like the viewers to remember?
I think for me the key messages would be that the refund size here that we see is an average of €1,076, so it's well worth applying. There is no reason to be afraid to engage. It's very unlikely that there's going to be an underpayment. The more likely situation will be an overpayment. So we would encourage people to avail of what they're entitled to. And then equally, with a company like ourselves, it's a no refund, no fee engagement. So you've got nothing to lose by looking into it.
Okay, great. Okay, Eileen, thank you very much for joining us. So that was Eileen Devereux, the commercial director at taxback.com. And I guess, the message is, we all think we're paying too much tax. Why leave more tax in the government's pockets? So you can either head to Revenue or go to taxback.com and see if you're one of those people who are entitled to a tax refund. So that's it for this week. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them below or catch up with us over on social media. Thanks again for watching, and see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.